It is now my pleasure to introduce our Chief Officer for Community Engagement and Diversity, Dr. Margaret Spearman, who will introduce our keynote speaker.
I am honored to introduce this year's distinguished and truly amazing keynote speaker, Jorge Barón, a Seattle activist and executive director of the Northwest Immigrants Rights Project. Every day, Jorge brings his passion, empathy, and firsthand experience to bear on the subject of immigration, which has become a touchstone in a polarizing and heated debate that cuts across issues of human rights, community cohesion, and national identity. The Northwest Immigrants Rights Project is on the front lines of this national firestone with boots on the ground to support vulnerable populations living in a climate of fear and oppression. Just this year, the group was active on the following fronts: in offices throughout the Northwest, helping clients access medical assistance, housing, and other basic services. At SeaTac Airport, trying to stop a plane from leaving with immigrants denied entry by the executive order travel ban. In court, assisting a legal team representing a detained young man who had previously enjoyed protection under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DREAMers policy. Today, the groundbreaking organization serves more than 10,000 people a year from more than 135 countries. Jorge's passion for advocating on behalf of immigrants is deeply rooted in his own experience. Originally from Bogota, Colombia, he came to the U.S. with his mother at the age of 13. He is keenly aware of what it's like to be in a new country, not knowing the language, not understanding how things work, and not having a support system of friends or family to count on. And like so many immigrants, he held fast to his dreams in the face of tremendous odds. Jorge went on to attend two of the country's most distinguished institutions, Duke University and Yale Law School. In 2006, with a law degree in hand, Jorge joined the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project as a staff lawyer. In 2008, he became its executive director. Under his direction, the organization has become the largest such group in the Western United States, and in a testament to his intelligence, vision, and passion for social justice. Jorge, your amazing work on behalf of immigrants and refugees is an inspiration to us all. We are so delighted you could be with us today. Everyone, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our 2017 graduation keynote speaker, Jorge Barón.
Thank you so much. I thought it was somebody else that they were talking about there. Thank you so much, Ms. Berman. That was a wonderful introduction. Junior Hara, faculty of the School of Social Work, graduates, students and family, really thank you so much for inviting me to speak this evening. It is truly an honor for me to be part of the celebration of all of the hard work of these graduates and all of you family members and friends who supported them in this journey. Really, congratulations. I have to say, I was a little surprised by the invitation to speak at your graduation. I thought, you know, what makes them think I have any wisdom to impart? I'm just a fellow traveler on this road of life, and why should people be forced to listen to me for 10 minutes rather than anybody else here? I don't know if it was the trying to stop the airplane, although I do want to make sure that people understand I wasn't actually physically doing it. It was through some legal channels that we were able to get that done. So I couldn't quite figure it all out, but I'll go ahead and share some observations, and I'm going to be focusing most of you on all of you who are graduating this evening. You know, tonight, of course, you're marking the end of a journey, but also you're marking the start of a new journey. And you're now looking ahead to what the future holds in store for you. And while I'm sure there's excitement about what you have accomplished, I suspect that at least for some of you, there's also some apprehension about the future. What should I do? Will I like my job? Will I get a job? Should I just stay in school? Now, I want to first note that for a lot of us, when we have these choices, we should be conscious of the privilege that we have in worrying about some of these things rather than many others. But at the heart of this is that the anxieties that you're having about the kind of life that you want to live. And in answering that question, I'm going to suggest that instead of looking forward from today, you should look backward. And I don't mean look at your past right now, but instead I'm inviting you to think of a time 60 or 70 years from now when, with luck, you will be a beautiful old person reflecting on your life. What will be important to you then? What will you remember? Will you remember what you did this summer? I hope you will remember tonight for sure. Now, as I said earlier, I don't really feel qualified to give advice, except perhaps if anybody needs some immigration legal advice, that I feel like I could do. But I will anyway share that I think there are really ultimately 4 things that we human beings should aspire to do in our lifetime. Pretty basic, 4 things. At least putting aside the basic necessities of life like breathing and eating. And these 4 things are learning, teaching, loving, and helping. So the good news is that you've just made some remarkable progress on number 1, learning. But of course, you know that you're not really done with that one. If you've really learned anything here at the school, you're probably more aware of how much you still don't know than you did when you got here. So you know that you still have a lot more to learn, but at least you already made some progress on that one. Now, teaching. Now, I don't mean teaching in the formal sense, though if you do end up teaching in that way, that's wonderful. I mean teaching in the sense of sharing knowledge, of mentoring. Right now, you might not think that you have a lot to teach, but don't sell yourself short. I do encourage you to make sure that in your future, teaching will be a part of what you do. Loving. Now, this is a big one, and I don't mean loving just the romantic sense, though I do, of course, wish that for you. And I also hope that you love your family and friends that are here. But I also mean loving in the sense of loving life, loving what you do day in and day out, finding a passion. If you're lucky, this will come in the workplace, as is the case for me. But maybe it'll be something else. Maybe it'll be a hobby or a pastime. Besides my family, I love soccer. I have played since I was 4 years old. Yes, I see at least one other person who shares that. All right, and the 4th one, helping. Now, this is particularly appropriate given the career path you've chosen, so allow me to spend a little time on this one. Now, what I mean by helping is pretty broad, but it boils down to ensuring that what we do in our lives improves the lives of others, not just our own. And I know this idea that we should be trying to make the world a better place is easily dismissed as a cliche. But I think the reason for this dismissiveness is that many people see the challenges in the world as too overwhelming, and so feel that despite our best efforts, we are barely going to make a dent in them. And I will tell you that for those of us who are working on social justice issues, it certainly feels that way sometimes. Whether you're working on civil rights, environmental justice, or many other areas of social justice, it is easy to feel that one person's ability to make a change is simply too little compared to the challenge. And that's certainly true today. I am often asked this about my work in the immigration field. When we're dealing with detention centers, with anti-immigrant rhetoric and unjust laws, how can I continue to have hope? And my response is to share a story about one of my first clients when I started working as a staff attorney at Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. Her name is Ileana, and she's given me permission to share her story. Now, Ileana came to the United States from her home country of Guatemala. She came and settled in the Seattle area because she had a distant relative living here. And like most undocumented immigrants, Ileana began to work odd jobs to support herself. After a few years of being here, Ileana came to the attention of immigration officials when they raided the restaurant she was working in. When they found out she did not have immigration status, they placed her in deportation proceedings. However, she was not detained as her case was pending. It would take a few years for her case to make its way through the immigration court system, and as this happened, Ileana had a daughter, but also, unfortunately, became the victim of domestic abuse at the hands of her partner. Because of her immigration status, Ileana did not call the police, but eventually the abuse became so bad that a neighbor called and her abuser was arrested. Ileana ended up at a domestic violence shelter with her daughter. Now, after a few months, Ileana began to put her life back together, moved out of the shelter, and got a new job. And then on a fall morning, Ileana's life began to unravel again. Ileana had dropped off her daughter at school and was driving to work when she was rear-ended by another car while she was at a traffic light. Now, she was not hurt, and it would be the kind of thing that for most of us would be an inconvenience, but not much more. But when the local police showed up to take the report, they found out that Ileana had a deportation order. Ileana did not know about this, but when she was at the DV shelter, the appeal in her case had been denied. And the police arrested Ileana and eventually sent her to the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. Now, as some of you may know, the detention center, the Northwest Detention Center, is the fourth largest in the United States, and people are held there while they undergo deportation proceedings. And I do want to acknowledge that as we speak tonight, there's over 1,500 community members detained there right now. Now, when Ileana got to the detention center, she asked the immigration agents if she could see a judge so she could be released from detention. But they told her that she had a deportation order, and so she wouldn't get to see a judge. They would just take a few days to process her for deportation and send her back to Guatemala. Ileana asked if she could see a lawyer to help her, and they told her that she could hire a private attorney if she wanted. But Ileana did not have any money, as she'd only recently started working. Now, unfortunately, people facing deportation are not entitled to appointed attorneys. This is the case in criminal cases. So what the ICE agents, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, did is to give her a list of free legal services providers, which actually only has one name on it, and that's Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. So Ileana made the call, and I was the attorney who was assigned to her case. I went to meet her at the detention center, and I learned about her situation. And after I learned about the details of her case, I told Ileana that because of the severe abuse she had suffered, she might actually qualify for a form of immigration protection from deportation known as a U visa. However, this process would take at least a few months, and because she already had a deportation order, immigration officials were not going to release her, and they may still deport her even before we were able to reopen her case. Ileana was very sad and told me she could not stay detained for months, especially if there was no guarantee that we would be able to allow her to stay here. So, and this is unfortunately something that happens frequently, that people who might have ways to fight their case decide to give up rather than face the prospect of being detained. So I wished her luck and left. But the next morning there was a voicemail, a message on our voicemail in our office, and it was Ileana, and she told me, "I've changed my mind, please come on back." So I went back to see her, and she told me that she wanted to fight her case. And I asked her what had changed her mind. And she told me, I was sitting here last night thinking about the fact that I was going to get deported, and I had to make a decision about my daughter, who had been staying with her relative. And I said, I have to make a decision as to whether, if I get deported, I take her back with me to Guatemala, to a place that I left because it was so unsafe, or if I could keep my daughter safe by leaving her here with this relative, but I might not get to see her again. And I couldn't make that choice. And I realized that the only way that I can stay here, keep my daughter safe and keep her with me, is if I fight this case. And so I want to fight. I remember as a new attorney, I felt the immensity of the stakes for Ileana, and I remember making sure she understood there was a chance we'd still lose. And she said she understood, but I'm pleased to share that we took on her case, and although it indeed took over 2 months of her being detained, we were ultimately able to get Ileana's case reopened, and she's now a lawful permanent resident and lives with her daughter and a son she's had since on the East Side. Now, Ileana's case did not resolve our global challenges with migration, and certainly won't end the debate about our country's immigration policy, what that policy should be. But it did resolve the injustice of forcing Ileana to have to choose between being with her daughter or keeping her daughter safe. And I think we should not discount the importance of that. And to be clear, this kind of difference isn't accomplished merely through legal cases. It can be accomplished with large and small instances of helping, of recognizing the value of every human being's dignity, no matter where they were born, what they look like, who they worship, or how much money they have. I will share one example of how what might be perceived as a small instance of helping played a critical role in my life. As you heard earlier, I came to the United States from Colombia when I was 13, and I didn't speak English at the time. And even after a year of school here, I was still pretty shy because I was not comfortable with my English. So I mostly, hung out by myself. And so when I started high school, I had to take the bus my freshman year. I would go on the bus and, sit alone and just be by myself. But there was this girl, Tara, who was a senior and who saw I was always by myself and came over to talk to me and was incredibly kind. And I don't think that Tara ever knew how much those conversations helped me get out of my shell and feel confident about speaking to others. But I know I'm not sure that I would be the same person I would be today had it not been because a teenager was kind and decided to spend a few minutes chatting with a young boy on the way to school. So change can come in small and large ways, and oftentimes in ways that might not seem obvious at the time. And I want to just add that I think it's important when we try to make change to be uncomfortable, to try to make sure that we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. Oftentimes when you're going to make the biggest change for your life or for the lives of others, you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Let me close by sharing some words from a speech that Robert F. Kennedy delivered in South Africa 51 years ago this week. In that speech, Senator Kennedy reminded us that each time a person stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lives of others, or strikes out against injustice, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. So that is my wish for all of you, that you will become generators of ripples of hope, and that your combined efforts will help our society move closer to the goal of equity and justice. And I hope that you will create opportunities for you to learn, to teach, to love, and to help in your future. Thank you again, and congratulations.